Hello, everyone. My name is John Ward, Head of Investor Relations at Inventor Capital. It's a pleasure to welcome you today and introduce Michael Konnert, President and CEO of Vizsla Silver, and Dr. Jesus Velador, Vice President of Exploration. Today, they'll be sharing an overview of the geology of the Panuco district and providing an update on Vizsla Silver's exploration plans and objectives for the remainder of the year. We'll also have a Q&A session at the end of the presentation. Please feel free to submit your questions in the Q&A box, and we'll do our best to answer as many as possible. With that, I'll hand it over to you, Mike.
Thank you, John, and greetings, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. It's wonderful to connect with our shareholders and supporters. And I'd also like to welcome anybody who's new to the company and encourage you to reach out to us for more information, to learn more. Go to our website, but we love interacting with our shareholders and supporters, so feel free to connect with us if you want any more details about anything we talk about today. So we've just released, and I should actually start, I should start by saying we will be making forward-looking statements. I certainly believe the best is yet to come for Vizsla, and I suppose that is a forward-looking statement. We've released some exciting exploration news yesterday, and I'm looking forward to Jesus's presentation today, covering that news in more detail and answering questions at the end. So Dr. Jesus Velador, our Vice President of Exploration, will be making the presentation today. But before I hand it over to Jesus, I just want to touch on a few points here. Vizsla Silver isn't just an exploration company. Our vision is to build the next world-class silver producer using our high-grade, high-margin, large-scale district here in Sinaloa, Mexico. We see Panuco as the most exciting high-grade silver opportunity globally. And with the scale and the grade that we have here, we believe it'll support a very long mine life and a very low-cost mining operation. And additionally, it's been clear for the last 12 months that Mexico is the premier destination for silver and silver producers. We've seen transactions like Silvercrest being acquired, Gatos being acquired, and Mag Silver. And more recently, as of this week, actually, the acquisition of Prime by Torex. So Prime is a company that we share the state of Sinaloa with. So we're starting to see a lot of positive news where single asset silver primary producers like Vizsla will be in several years are commanding excellent valuations, and we're seeing a lot of interest in the state that we're in as well. And I think that just shows how underexplored and undeveloped the state of Sinaloa is. So we're very excited about seeing that. Now, Jesus will cover yesterday's exciting news, which included a significant increase in exploration, the start of exploration at the newly acquired Santa Fe project to the south of our original Panuco district. And we're seeing results that are encouraging our team to really expand that exploration and to continue to hunt for that project number 2. And we believe that we can find project number 2 on the ground that we have here in this district. Here we have a commanding land package that we've quadrupled over the last 18 months. And, in the future, I really believe that we're going to have multiple, not just 1 or 2, but multiple producing centers throughout this district here. So we are on the hunt for that. Now, outside of exploration, our growth path forward is clear. This year, we will complete our feasibility study, project finance. Will significantly advance the test mine, which has been a very important key de-risking milestone for us here so far this year. And the best part is that we're very well funded for all the work that we're doing here. We have over $200 million US in the bank. We have marketable securities of about $25 million US. So we're in the best shape that we've been in the history of the company, and we're about to unlock the most catalyst-rich period of time here going forward. Going into that construction period and pre-construction with the feasibility study. It's becoming more and more real what we've discovered over the last 5 to 6 years in Panuco. So it's very exciting. So this hunt for Project 2 is exciting, and Jesus will touch on this a bit today here. But when we arrived at the district, there had only been about 20,000 meters of historic drilling. We consolidated that original district, the Panuco district, for the very first time in modern history. And then by doing that, we unlocked a huge amount of value through exploration. With 20,000 meters, historically at Panuco, we went to almost 400,000 meters in diamond drilling. Very safe to say that exploration is in our DNA. And Jesus's background is, it's almost tailor-made for what we're doing here. He's probably the best person I can imagine to unlock the value that we have here at this project. So I'm very excited to turn it over to Dr. Jesus Velador, Vizsla Silver's Vice President of Exploration, to take us through the next part of the presentation here.
Thank you, Michael. Thanks for the great introduction. Well, good morning, everyone. So as Michael said, we're going to be covering different aspects of not only Panuco project, but other plans that we have for our newest acquisitions that we have made in what we call, or what we refer to as the San Dimas Panuco corridor. So I'll start first by showing this slide that puts together or summarizes all the kind of work and accomplishments by Vizsla over the last 5 years. And you notice, on the left, the graph that I'm showing there is the mineral resources. The polygons, the blue and the green one, show the resources. The blue is the inferred, the green one is the measured and indicated. You can see as our most recent mineral resource update on the hand right side of the plot, you see there's still a substantial amount of inferred resources as the blue polygon, the blue area shows there. But if you look at the lines, the light blue line is the silver equivalent ounces in the measured indicated resources, whereas the darker kind of blue line is the silver equivalent ounces in the inferred resources. And you can see that the actual ounces in the mineral resources are much higher in the measured indicated resources. And this, what it is telling us, is of the great the risking that we have done, that we have completed over the last 2 years at Panuco project. So obviously the silver equivalent grade in these mineral resources is a function of the grade and tones. And what is telling us here is that the grades that we are getting in these measured and indicated resources, it's spectacular. And you can see that in the previous tables that we have published with our mineral resource updates. And also, well, you can see the numbers here that we prepare. We completed over 391,000 meters of drilling. We're getting close to 1,000 holes drilled on the project since late 2019. Our discovery cost is fairly low, as you can see, 0.41 cents per ounce discovered to date. And we have plans to continue making discoveries, as we will see in our following slides. To date, well, this year we have drilled 8,000 meters in approximately 26 holes. That we're going to see the distribution of this drilling, but some of these holes were drilled in the northeast, and some of these drills are being completed now in the west part of the district. As a result of these 8,000 meters that we have completed in this 2025, we have done already a discovery. This discovery happened in the Anima zone, as we are gonna see in the next few slides in more detail, and we intend to continue the exploration in this zone, to continue adding ounces in this area. Now, in this slide, I'm showing in more detail what I've been talking about, the discoveries and our exploration plans in Project 1 or Panuco. And you can see we have outlined different targets. First of all, we have some resource expansion targets that we intend to tackle over the next year, more exactly, because for this year what we intend is to focus all our efforts in making new discoveries either in proximal targets around the defined mineral resource that we have in the west. If you can see on the left-hand side of the map, we have a cluster of veins. That's cluster of veins where you can see probably Copala and Napoleon. That's the area that contains 98% of the mineral resources. And around that area, we have the proximal targets. I'm outlining 4 of them there in this area. These 4 targets have multiple veins, some of them. And just recently, we completed a ground geophysical survey. This survey is the HLEM survey. And it's a ground electromagnetic survey that has the capability to give 2 sets of anomalies, as we will see, in upcoming slides. It gives us 2 different kinds of anomalies depending on the target you're looking for. And what we have done is that we cover part of Copala and part of Napoleon to get a feeling on the geophysical signature of these veins. We have good high-grade mineralization in both of these deposits, and what we wanted is to see what response do we get with this kind of geophysical technique or method over these veins with no mineralization, to be able to extrapolate this knowledge into other areas. And we did as such, and we extrapolated these lines and expanded the geophysical survey to the north, as you can see, and to the west in areas where we have these kind of proximal targets. Now, with this, putting all this information together with the mapping that we have done in geochemistry and alterations, now we are able to be more selective on the most important targets. We have talked several times also about the district scale targets. We have 5 high priority targets in the northeast. One of them is the Anima zone that is kind of in the middle. That's where we announced our discovery of the La Pipa high-grade mineralization that I just mentioned. And you can see the results here on the bottom of the slide on the right. With what we discovered in Animas is 5.8 meters. This is actually one of the intercepts, because we had 2 intercepts within the broad vein zone, epithermal vein zone here at Animas. But the most outstanding intercept is this 5.8 meters with 653 grams silver and over 4 grams gold. Now, in this next slide, I'm showing what I'm talking about with respect to Animas. Animas is a 7 kilometer or over 7 kilometer strike length vein system structure deep into the southwest, where most of the historic mining has occurred in the district. A lot of mining activity occurred along this 7 kilometer vein system, but if you can see, all of these mining activities were conducted by local miners, mostly artisanal miners with very rudimentary kind of equipment, and they weren't able to go very deep into the veins. So what I'm showing here is this part of Animas at La Pipa, where we announced the discovery with hole AM 2590 in late March this year. And you can see the old timers or the local miners in the area managed to extract some high-grade shoots located near surface, and probably many of these high-grade shoots occurring near to surface were enriched by supergene, processes and all of that, but they didn't really went deep into the vein system. So what we are doing now is that we are going deeper into the vein system, looking for a reopening of the high grades or reopening of the structure, or potential telescoping of the mineralization. These epithermal veins tend to be, in many cases, telescope. So you have multiple overlapping systems of mineralization or zones of mineralization. And this is what it seems that we are seeing at La Pipa now. We are seeing a high-grade zone near surface, probably enriched by supergene processes, but at depth, we are seeing a replication of high-grade zones and potentially more high-grade shoots. Now, we're gonna, before we move into the details of the plans we have for Panuco, for Project 1 and the new acquisitions, let's get general review of the geology of Panuco and why we think Panuco it's a spectacular and very important district, the silver gold mining district. And I'll start by sharing this map here, and by saying if you can see the table on the left bottom corner of the slide, you see there's a list of mineral deposits. It's a list of 14 mineral districts, in fact, that contain more than 1 billion ounces of silver equivalent. But the most outstanding thing here with respect to this table is that 8 out of these 14 districts are in Mexico. And that is actually what makes Mexico a premier intermediate sulfidation epithermal jurisdiction. 8 of these 14 districts are in Mexico, and I'm showing those 8 districts with the yellow stars here. And out of these 8 that you can see there, 6 of them are epithermal deposits or have epithermal mineralization, whereas the two other ones are either carbonate replacement deposits or related to more higher temperature environments near the intrusion source. But 6 of them are truly epithermal, and they are big. They have more than 1 billion ounce silver equivalent silver, and we strongly believe that Panuco has the potential to become the ninth big silver district in Mexico. Now, what we know about the geology of Panuco district is that, well, the stratigrapher first, we have a basement of meta sediments here in Panuco that has been intruded by diorite, granodiorite, and granite stocks, and then has been overlain by the volcanic complex, the lower volcanic complex of the Sierra Madre. And then on top of this lower volcanic complex, we have the most recent Miocene volcanics of the upper volcanic series. So all of these packages of volcanics are present in our Panuco district. The western side contains mostly or predominantly lower volcanic complex, and the intrusions, the main concentrations of the intrusions are located predominantly in the central portion of the district. And what we have gained through some interpretations and through mapping in the district is that the district has been segmented in 3 different blocks, roughly segmented in 3 different blocks, because there might be some other structural, fractures or faults that even produce more complexities. But in general, we can roughly say that the district has been segmented in 3. So the western portion contains a tilted volcanic sequence where 98% of the mineral resource is at this moment. The central portion contains the most of the intrusions, diorites, granodiorites, and granite, and is what we have identified or recognized as an uplifted block. This block seems to be, up with respect to the other sides of the district, with respect to the western and the eastern side, and then on the right side we have the eastern block of the property. This eastern block is also thrown down with respect to the central one with the stocks, and these two. What is relevant about this segmentation of the district is that it creates opportunity, because now after almost 400,000 meters of drilling in the area, we recognize that particularly in the western side of the district, the volcanic sequence has been tilted, which created actually a condition to prevent mineralization from erosion. And we think that is happening also in the northeast, where the block has been downdropped, and you have more presence of volcanics on top of the intrusions and the basement. And this condition also favors the preservation of the vein mineralization from erosion. So for us, these 2 areas on either side of the central intrusion part of the district create great opportunity for exploration. And this is going to be our main focus for exploration, drilling, and targeting for the short and medium term. Now, how do we get to all these conclusions? Well, first of all, we got to these conclusions through some of the aid by Tony Starling. We hired a couple of times Tony Starling to give us some insights on the structural and tectonic history of the region. What he defined is 5 different deformation events. These 5 different deformation events evolve through time. You know, particularly the stress field orientation evolve to time or switch to time in direction, as you can see here by the blow arrows. But the most important thing and the message to take away from this slide is that the 2 first deformation events were compressional. So they created lots of reverse faults and folding in the region. And the 3 last ones were the extensional ones. These extensional ones, what they did, particularly the number 3 and number 4 extensional event, they reactivated all their compressional faults and created open spaces. These open spaces they created is permeability and is good for emplacement of vein mineralization. And as we know now, because we dated adularia from Napoleon and Copala, we know that the mineralization occurred at 25.8 million years and is concurrent with the deformation event number 4, which created a lot of openings in the northwest-southeast direction. So this is what we know, but and of course, deformation number 4 is really important because it creates the open spaces and allow the hydrothermal fluids to go through and deposit minerals and all of that. But deformation number 5, extension number 5, is none less important because that's the one that created the tilting that I mentioned. And as you can see on the photograph to the right, you see this tilting of volcanics is very, very clear in the Panuco district. And what this did is that this tilting favor or preserve mineralization from erosion, as we will see in a longitudinal section of Napoleon. We also know about some characteristics of the mineralization of the fluids. We have done some investigations through fluid inclusions and argon dating, as I already mentioned. And we have done a little bit of microscopic studies as well. And we know the main ore minerals are acanthite and electrum. This is really good, particularly for metallurgists and for processing. Those are, very, very amenable ore, silver and gold minerals to leaching in particular. But that's something that we know. The other thing we know, or we are certain, is that the mineralization style is epithermal. And we infer that Copala is a little bit more on the low sulfidation kind of end of the spectrum, whereas Napoleon is a little bit more on the side of the intermediate sulfidation spectrum. Why we say that? Because, well, on the first hand, Copala is pretty much devoid of base metals. It has some base metals, of course, lead, zinc, and almost no copper, but it has some lead and zinc, but in very, very low concentrations, and which makes it a good candidate for being on the kind of low sulfidation end of the spectrum. Whereas at Napoleon, we have silver and lead concentrations up to 2.5-3% combined, and a little bit kicks of copper, particularly at the bottom of the vein systems. So it seems like we have a zonation, or we have a full system of veins that have been zoned by fluid rock interaction mostly. Now, so that's what we know pretty much about the district, about the mineralization and the geology and the structural evolution of the district. Now we're going to go into what we have done and the plans that we have for Project 1. Project 1, as I mentioned, we have a set of targets. We have defined a set of targets. 5 of them are referred to as the mineral resource extension targets. These mineral resource extension targets are essentially potential mineralization from on the same veins with resources or indications of trends that we can follow up to extend mineralization and resources in the same veins. And we have defined some very important ones in Copala and straightforward kind of low-hanging fruit. We have a Napoleon. We have also a very good example of this resource expansion potential, as well as some other areas like a Napoleon at depth, La Luisa, and Cruz Negra, of course. Cruz Negra is not a huge vein with a lot of resources yet, but it's open to the northwest. The reason we haven't followed up really on this La Cruz Negra is because, we have been very busy with obviously with Copala and Napoleon, which are major veins with spectacular grades. And we also have in this western side of the district, what we call Project One, we have another set of targets. These other set of targets that we refer to as the proximal targets are veins that we have already identified. On some of these veins, we have even put a few holes on them, but we don't have resources. And we have good examples of them. We already completed a ground geophysical survey over this. If you see the blue wavy lines on the map, those are the lines where we conducted the HLEM survey, which is the electromagnetic survey. And what we did for this survey is that we cover first parts of Napoleon and Copala, where we have no mineralization, to be able to pick up a signature of these veins and mineralization, and then extrapolate this knowledge into other areas with proximal targets to ultimately make our exploration more successful. So I talked about the extensional resource extension targets that we have at Copala, and this is the most clear example that we have. And last year, we discovered an old mine adit in Copala on surface, and we recognized that the Copala mineralization actually extends to the surface. Before that, we had the paradigm that Cristiano was cutting off mineralization on Copala on the top. And we at the time, the interpretations we had were indicating that Cristiano mineralization post-dated Copala, and then it was therefore cutting off the mineralization going up on Copala. So we didn't follow up a lot on this structure going up, particularly in the southeast, where you can see the blue ellipses there. But after the discovery of the Copala adit, the old Copala adit, kind of in the central of the vein, where you can see the blue shaded polygon there. That's the measured resource that we have for Copala, and we extended the mineralization all the way to surface. So after the discovery, and changing our interpretation with respect to the time relationships between Cristiano and Copala, we defined that there's actually potential for Copala to continue with high-grade mineralized shoots all the way to surface. And this is what we intend to do in the short term for Copala. Slow-hanging fruit. We don't have urgency to do it right now. At this moment, we have time. We probably are going to end up doing this when we are underground. But this is a good set of opportunities that we have there. For Napoleon, we have another condition. I mentioned the mineralization is tilted. This tilting occurred post-mineralization. So then first we deposited the vein mineralization, then tilting occurred during D5 in the Miocene and produced this kind of plunging shoot. So we have done interpolations of metal ratios, and we have collected some alteration data that we analyze with TerraSpec. And what we define is that we have potential for feeder zones in this vein. We still have open-ended intercepts at depth, at lower elevations, where we see high concentrations of base metals, and we see increasing silver to gold ratios that could point to potential feeders. Another important thing that we did, as we mentioned, that this is still work in progress, is that we started with the collection of TerraSpec data. And our TerraSpec data is telling us that there's a good indication that of an association of sericite, phengite, and well-crystallized kaolinite with high-grade zones or with high-grade shoots. And we're still in the process of modeling all of this in 3D. We're keep collecting data throughout the vein. But ultimately, what we're going to do is, with this information of alteration and correlation with high grade, to define vectors to be able to extrapolate and apply it on our surface exploration. So in other words, when we go to any other vein, we are going to be able to detect these alteration minerals and see if they are pointing to high-grade zones. I don't want to spend a lot of time on this. This is Napoleon Hanging Wall 4. This Napoleon Hanging Wall 4 is a low lying angle kind of splay coming off from Napoleon, particularly in the south. It has shown some very good intercepts with very significant silver and gold grades, particularly is showing increasing in gold values. We haven't really explored this vein. All the intercepts that you see here have been intercepts that we hit the vein while we were drilling to actually infill Napoleon. So there hasn't been a proper exploration plan for this vein. So the vein is here because it was intercepted to drilling to Napoleon, but we intend at some point, as I mentioned, the same as for Copala, we don't have any urgency of doing this, but we have, this is very low hanging fruit that we have here. Now, let's jump into the more details of the geophysical survey that we completed that I mentioned. So this survey is called the HLEM survey. It's an electromagnetic survey. It's ground, and we really like it because it gives us two sets of anomalies. The survey first is run in, with the transmitter and receiver in tandem at 100-meter spacing, and then you collect data over 25-meter space stations. But you collect the data at variable frequencies. We collected data for 5 different frequencies, and we selected which was the best frequency to apply based on responses on known mineralization over Copala and Napoleon. And then you not only get that, you don't only get the 5 different frequencies, but you get 2 sets of anomalies, as we will see. We get an anomaly, a set of anomalies that is in the in-phase waves and the out-of-phase waves. So you can see the electromagnetic, these electromagnetic equipments measures electromagnetic waves or energy, that gets transmitted to the rocks. So, but there are 2 sets of data that the instrument collects. The in phase is where essentially the energy waves are synchronized, whereas the out of phase are out of synchronization. And the good thing about this is that the in phase is good for highlighting good conductors, but the out of phase kind of anomalies or data is good for detecting poor conductors. And in epithermal veins, you don't always have good conductors because you have veins made out of quartz, and quartz is a non-conductor mineral. So this is why this is really important. So what we've done, we collect the data, as I didn't mention, but you probably read it. We collect the data for over 43 line kilometers in different targets in the west or in Project 1. This is what you're seeing here in the bottom one. You probably see on the right hand side of the image, you see a legend there saying Napoleon. This is some of the information collected over Napoleon. We got the best response over Napoleon for the out of phase data. So what this means is that Napoleon is behaving as we should expect, as a poor conductor, because it's a vein made of quartz with a little bit of metals, but not a lot of metals. And so we got a very good response for Napoleon. We got some good anomalies over Copala as well. Unfortunately, we weren't able to cover the whole of Copala because, we have infrastructure that is being built at this moment. We have 2 power lines that go through the deposit, so there's a lot of noise, potential noise. We ran 3 lines. We collected some data. It's not ideal. We would have liked to collect more data. We also have the town to the north, and so the best data that we collected was for Napoleon. And what you see here on the left is the in-phase anomalies that I mentioned, which indicate or result the good conductors, whereas on the right-hand side, we have the out of phase or the good ones for detecting poor conductors, in other words, quartz veins. This is another part of the survey that we completed up north from Napoleon into La Colorada, or what we call the Napoleon Colorada Copala Fault intersection, which I'm going to talk a little bit about, but we believe is excuse me, a good area with favorable conditions to develop permeability and potentially hosting mineralization. In this slide now, I'm showing the other section, and you can see probably in the subset with green the small yellow square there. It's actually showing where's the location of these lines. So these lines were intended or planned to cover La Luisa and a couple of other targets in the southwest called San Jac and San Peter, and up north the Cuatro de Mayo area, where we already have some interesting drill holes with high-grade vein mineralization evidences. Now, here, putting all together, all the data together, and based on what I mentioned, so we have different sets of anomalies. On the left-hand side, we have the in phase, which resolve the good conductors, and on the right-hand side, we have the poor conductors. And immediately you can see there are many of these anomalies or anomalous readings that overlap very well with known map veins in the district. But what is more outstanding is that in the out of phase, in the poor conductor anomalies, we have a extremely good correlation of anomalous readings over Napoleon. We have another sets of anomalies in the intersection of the Copala Fault. I don't know if you see the blue line there, projected, dash line projected to the projected intersection with Napoleon. And we have a good set of anomalies there. So this is something that we intend to tackle there. And I mentioned we have drilled over this year 8,000 meters in 26 holes. I mentioned that at the beginning of the presentation. We have done this drilling this year with 2 rigs, but we have plans to increase our rigs to 4 pretty soon to be able to cover all of these potential targets that we are defining. La Colorada North, I mentioned, we are really excited about this area. We got, as you've seen in the previous slide, we define a good set of anomalies, particularly in the out of phase or poor conductors anomalies. And this is, we believe, before we even run this geophysical survey, we believed that this is a good area for exploration. We think the right conditions exist here for additional mineralization because we have the Copala Fault, which controls other series of deposits along this strike length to the south. It has the Colorado deposit that has been mined out, and then it has Copala, and then it has another all mines in outside of the property to the south. And so we believe this Copala Fault imposes some kind of control on mineralization. And then at this point where we call the intersection, I don't know if you see the red circle there, is the projected intersection of this Copala Fault with Napoleon. We think this area has the very good conditions for hosting additional mineralization, and we intend to go and explore there. In fact, we have a rig already on the kind of southern part of this area, but pretty soon we're going to move rigs up there to explore some of these out of phase geophysical anomalies and this intersection of the 2 structures. We have we run a few lines over the San Peter and San Jac structures that I mentioned. If you see the subset in green on the right-hand side, you can see the yellow square there. That's the area that we are talking about. We have good indications of structures. We have spectacular alterations. We are advancing mapping in this area, and we also resolve some anomalies. We already drilled a fence hole because another initiative that I haven't talked a lot or haven't talked at all through the presentation, but we started already a fence drilling program in the property. And what you see there in line on the map, in the blue line with the map, is our first fence hole that we drill in this area to kind of go through this system of alteration and explore. Other initiatives that we've talked previously in other webinars and press releases is, we have acquired, or we continue acquiring information and doing analysis. We started with LiDAR, and then with obviously mapping with the support of LiDAR, and doing alteration interpretations and mapping and applying the TerraSpec. More recently, we acquired also satellite images. We acquired a worldview satellite image, and then what you are seeing here is the worldview 3 satellite image highlighting advanced geological alteration. In other words, kaolinite, alunite, and pyrophyllite in red, like the kind of red spots there. And on top of that, I have overlay vein traces and the targets that we have identified today in the district. We have identified over 140 targets today. Some of them have been drill tested, as you can see. Some of them are at different stages, at other stages, some at the mapping stage, some at the prospecting, sampling, etc. But overall, we have a big pipeline of targets just over Panuco, and we are applying all the tools that we have to continue with these exploration activities. Now let's jump into Project 2. Well, Project 2, it's essentially on the new acquisitions. We have grown our land package in the San Dimas Panuco corridor tremendously for the last couple of years. We hold or we control over 40,000 hectares in this region. The most recent acquisition is Santa Fe, and this is where we're going to spend most of the time talking today. Santa Fe, you can see in this map, is the bottom one. Is over 12,000 hectares that it covers. It has a small operation mine with a 350 tons capacity, producing capacity. And this map shows in detail more about Santa Fe. Here on the right hand side, you can see this map is the 1 to 50,000 scale geology map from the SGM. And as you can see, there are lots of northwest structures. One of them, I'm not going to be able to point it out for you, but it shows clearly the Copala Fault there, going through Panuco and extending into San Enrique. It also shows very clear the Cordón del Oro kind of Animas zone, extending also into San Enrique to the south. But it has another set of northwest trending structures that run from Panuco through Santa Fe. We acquired Santa Fe with some legacy data, very important legacy data, over 20,000 meters of drilling, high resolution magnetics, radiometrics, and also LiDAR. So there's a lot of information to start with to work. There have been defined in this area 6 near mine targets. The mine is in the central square there, where you probably can read Santa Fe. That's where the mine is, the 350 tons producing mine. And it is surrounded by other 6 vein targets. These vein targets have been partially explored. They have a few holes poked in either by Fortuna or by Aurico in the past, but there still remain as good targets to be explored. They have just been barely touched by some of this drilling, and they still hold a lot of potential for extensions. To continue on, but by the way, something that we have done is in Santa Fe, we already started putting together all the information, a GIS database with all the geophysics, geology, geochemistry, existing geochemistry, drilling, etc. We are working on a 3D model interpretation of the mine veins to define near mine targets, and we are also mapping. We already deploy a team of geos, 3 geos on site, and we are conducting detailed mapping on 800 hectares surrounding the mine to be able to define drilling targets hopefully before the end of this third quarter. Now, moving into other blue sky potential, obviously we have La Garra and San Enrique. La Garra, it's really a good asset. It was really tough to decide which one tackle first between Santa Fe and La Garra. La Garra has, what we saw at La Garra is two systems of veins, one of them running for 2.6 kilometers, the other one for 2 kilometers, with very exciting, interesting grades right on surface sampling. And so it was really tough to decide which one to tackle first. We decided to go into Santa Fe first because it's more proximal to Panuco. It's along the same northwest trending of structures, and obviously it has an operating mine already. San Enrique is more green. It's more difficult access to with respect compared to Santa Fe and La Garra. So topographically, it's a little bit challenging, but it has all the good ingredients to host mineralization. The Copala Fault runs through it. The Animas, Cordon del Oro run through this property. We have identified a good set of dome complex in the area. So there are indications of something good is going on in this area. This is San Enrique. You can see there's already some information. We have LiDAR, we have magnetics, we have radiometrics, and we intend, in the kind of medium term, to start with a regional geochemical program to be able to pinpoint more exploration targets. La Garra, I mentioned already, it's very good, very good asset with two systems of veins, both of them defined or found in the northeast corner of the property, but the rest of the property, we don't know. There may be additional, structures or mineralization or even all mines that we don't even know of yet. And yeah, so summary, well, we're gonna continue with the resource growth drilling. We're working on defining our next discovery, mapping. We continue mapping through the property. We also started mapping at Santa Fe. We intend to continue doing geophysical studies, geophysical investigations after this successful ground HLEM survey. We intend to cover the whole property with an airborne survey before the end of this year. We continue advancing with our alteration mapping and interpretations, and obviously we're gonna continue on the hunt for the project 2. And with that, I think I'll leave it out to Mike. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Jesus, and that was very thorough. And despite being very familiar with this project and the potential there, the presentation got me even more excited if that was possible. So thank you very much for that. I think it's really quite clear that the upside, the exploration potential here is immense. I think we've done a good job as a company acquiring assets that have flown under the radar. Really, all these have been, from private hands in Mexico, just like we did with the original Panuco district. So, we believe internally it's a goal of ours to reach 1 billion ounces of silver equivalent at the Panuco Copala district. But when you look at La Garra and San Enrique and Santa Fe, I think we have potentials for hundreds of millions of ounces in excess of that. And if we're lucky, even the potential for multiple billion-ounce districts here in this trend. I mean, one just has to look at San Dimas, 80 kilometers to the northeast of Panuco, to see what's possible here. And knowing that 8 of the 14 billion-ounce districts around the world are in Mexico, and the majority of those 8, 6 of those 8 are the very same deposit style as ours. It just shows the immense potential here. So we're thrilled with the exploration, but at the same time, of course, we are developing and delivering project number 1. I think it's prudent for us to drive this forward, get into cash flow, and then continue to grow organically through these land packages from the immense amount of cash flow that project number 1 will produce. I think it's important to remind everybody that project number 1 will be the largest single asset silver primary producer globally listed on a stock exchange by the time we're in production here. So we are driving very hard towards that end of 2027 first silver target. We do expect to have our feasibility study out before Christmas this year, and certainly in the second half of 2025. That's all on track and is progressing very nicely. And of course, we just heard about the exploration objectives, so I won't go over all of these again. But project number 1 is progressing very well, and to that point, here's our timeline. This slide is our timeline towards first silver in the last quarter of 2027. Permitting has gone well. We're permitting underway right now. We expect to receive those permits before basically this time next year, middle point of 2026. Feasibility study again by the end of 2025, targeting a construction period in the second half of 2026. So, this is a real timeline. This is, well thought out on our end, and also very aggressive. So I don't know of any other companies that are moving silver primary high-grade silver project towards production this rapidly. And of course, our goal is to take advantage of these excellent metal prices. So, I was quoted the other day at a conference saying, if you own Vizsla Silver, you probably don't own enough, and if you don't own it, you need to own it. But I believe there's 3 main reasons why we should own Vizsla Silver. Of course, we're traded on the NYSE and the TSX under the ticker VZLA on both exchanges. Again, that fast track to production, delivering the feasibility study in the coming months before the end of the year, targeting that first silver in the second half of 2027. The downside's protected here. We have, incredible resource here, 350 million ounces of silver equivalent globally at high grades. We have over $200 million in cash, which is, the ultimate way to protect the downside, allows us to achieve all of these goals and stay in a very secure position financially as we progress towards production. And of course, we are working on project finance as well. So we expect to have an announcement towards being fully funded for construction in this year as well. And of course, this de-risking that we're doing is very important. And I saw a question on the test mine. I think it's important to just highlight. We did put out a press release on the test mine. I was just down at the site recently and was underground at the project. It's one of the cleanest and best designed mines that I've ever seen. I think the team has done an incredible job there. It's progressing very well. We're actually increasing the production rate there, the development rate. So that's looking very good. And we're aiming to deliver, kind of completing the test mine in the coming, quarters ahead here. And I think that'll be excellent. Of course, we've done, as Jesus talked about, an incredible job of consolidating more ground, bringing together a true pipeline of development assets that can follow behind Vizsla Silver's project number 1. And this is oftentimes I say it's like having a time machine and going back to some of these incredible districts elsewhere in Mexico and having our picket land. And we're building this incredible pipeline of assets in this frontier silver belt. And the upside is immense. We've explored such a small portion that resource that we have. 98% of it sits really on those Napoleon, Copala, and adjacent structures. It's such a small portion of project number 1. And then when you look at the upside of the rest of the projects, we have so much more to do here, and we're uncovering that. And I think the timing's important. We have strong leverage to rising metal prices. We've seen M&A in the space, focus specifically on Mexico. Those M&A transactions showed that single asset silver producers and single asset silver developers get a premium in the market. And I think that we have a number of characteristics that should give us actually a premium valuation to those good comparisons there. The scope and the scale and the grade and the cash flow and everything that we have here coming, I think eventually will demand an incredible premium based on our peer comparables. And of course, we are catalyst rich. If you're a shareholder, I think we're all excitedly awaiting the next several months here coming ahead towards the end of the year, because there's some major catalysts coming, and we're excited to we're excited to show those to the market here shortly. So with that, I'll end the presentation, and we can jump into Q&A.
Thanks, Mike and Jesus. Just a quick reminder to please submit your questions in the Q&A box, and we'll address as many as we can. Firstly, for Jesus, how much of the proposed 25 kilometers of drilling is dedicated to extension, proximal, district, and greenfields targets?
Yeah, thank you, John. Yeah, good question. Yeah, well, first of all, what we intend for this 25,000 meters is to dedicate all of that to exploration. We do not intend for this year to do any mineral resource extension. So it is going to be a mix of exploration between the west and the east, but all of this is going to be discovery oriented.
Thanks, Jesus. Another one for you. What does it mean for a geophysical anomaly to be in phase or out phase, and why does it matter that it's a strong conductor?
Good. Yeah, I'd like to emphasize on this. It is. I'm not a geophysicist, so I'm doing my best to explain this. But in other, what we have is an instrument that collects two sets of data. It's something that they call in phase, and the other one out of phase. These are different sets of waves, energy waves that the instrument collects at different frequencies. And what is important here is not the waves or the energy or the physics behind, but it is that the in-phase sets of anomalies that the instrument gives are good for finding conductors. So if you have a good set of in-phase anomalies, that could lead you into good conductor veins. In other words, veins that contain sulfides. Whereas in the out-of-phase anomalies, these out-of-phase anomalies, what they define is poor conductors. So in other words, veins or rocks that are devoid of conductor metals or sulfides. So because most epithermal veins are not very rich in metals, we have to look carefully into both set of anomalies and just don't follow the in phase or the good conductor anomalies, because if we only follow the good conductor anomalies, we can be misled into leaving something out under the ground, because typical epithermal veins are composed mostly of quartz. So in quartz is not a conductor, it's a poor conductor. So you have to really look into the two sets of anomalies and know your geology and do your interpretations and decide which of these anomalies are going to be the most reliable ones.
As a follow-up, Jesus, have you validated these anomalies? If not, what is your plan to do so?
We are in the process of doing that, actually, as we speak. We are already doing detailed mapping on the western side near the St. Peter, St. Jack area, and on the Colorado North area, where we have the convergence of the Copala Fault and the Napoleon vein. So we are finding evidences of veins and all mine workings, and as we speak, also we are working along the geophysical lines that we survey and collecting geological data and confirming what is given the response on these anomalies.
A question for you, Mike. With a test mine already underway, how do current exploration results influence mine planning decisions for 2026 and 2027?
Well, it's a good question. The mine plan, has been developed using the measured and indicated resource that we announced earlier this year. If we were to make a massive discovery that was, adjacent to Copala or something like that, I think there's probably some scope to look at how that might fit into a mine plan. But really, the mine plan that we have going into the feasibility study beyond the first 2 to 4 years is probably not going to be exactly what happens when you're underground. Typically these things actually grow. You find other structures when you're drifting underground, and the potential for us to find more, even just through the test mine and other types of mine works, is going to be huge. So, I think there potentially is scope to add new discoveries into the mine plan, but as we're moving very rapidly forward, I think what we'd look at is probably an updated mine plan, updated resource that feeds into perhaps an updated study in the future.
Staying with you, Mike, if Vizsla Silver were to define a new resource outside the currently proposed PEA and FS area in the west, would it be processed through the proposed mill?
Yes, I think that's likely the case. If it was within what we call our center of mass, or the radius that we draw around the mill area, there's some structures that will absolutely get run through that mill, and I think La Luisa is a great example of that. La Luisa is just to the west of Napoleon. It's complementary to everything that we're doing here. We've done some incredible drilling there. There's a nice resource, but we don't have that as a core part of the mine plan. I think the idea is to continue to explore that, grow that where we see a lot of low-hanging fruit, and then that would likely be run through the project number 1 mill. We have a 10-year mine life in this in the PEA, and I think it should be somewhat similar going into the feasibility study. In reality, this will be producing for decades to come out of these veins and the structures that we found so far. For us, we wanted to demonstrate the incredible economic viability at this point and move it into production so that we can develop and grow and do that all from cash flow in the coming years into the next decade.
Thanks, Mike. Switching back to Jesus, was the historical mining in Animas conducted in quartz breccia?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, absolutely. It's quartz breccia on top, with some supergene oxidation, alteration, and then underneath that we have essentially massive quartz vein, still appreciated, but massive for the most part.
Thanks, Jesus. Staying with you, will drilling at Santa Fe require a new drilling budget and schedule, or would meters from the current 25,000 meter program be allocated towards that land package?
No, this 25,000 meters that we have talking about is for the Panuco district itself, but obviously we are really excited about Santa Fe, and as soon as we define targets, we'll be in a position of allocating some additional budget to be able to go and drill Santa Fe.
This is probably for you, Mike. Will operations at Santa Fe continue, and does the property being contiguous to Panuco aid in permitting process?
The operations do continue under the previous ownership, and the way that we structured the deal was very similar to the original deal that we did at Panuco, where we went into a producing district, small scale production district, and the owners aren't always so ready to give up their production. They've invested capital in order to develop the mine, and that's sunk cost if they don't extract the minerals that they've developed to. So we came to an understanding with the owner, the previous owner, and we have an ability to explore for several years, for 24 months from the signing of the agreement, understand the potential there, and then at the end of those 2 years we can accelerate the option agreement, own the project 100%, and then run the material through that mill that we would likely expand from 350 tons per day to something probably in excess or around 1,000 tons per day we would envision here, unless we find something even bigger. Then it might be something on the same scale as project number 1. Now, I think there probably are some, let's call them intangible benefits to having a producing district here, and in some ways there's some serious benefits about having past production and mill sites on a property that you're working on. First of which is that the government views this as a brownfields district, an area where mining has occurred for in some cases, in the Panuco cases, for hundreds of years. So it's much easier permit a brownfields district where there's been hundreds of years of production, hundreds of kilometers of tunneling over the years, and that there's already been, let's call them some environmental disturbances. In fact, we were able to permit the test mine faster due to the fact that it was all permitted on previously disturbed land, mines that existed in the past. Similarly, we've selected the mill site for project number 1 on a previously disturbed piece of land that was deemed to be already environmentally disturbed. So there is advantages to be operating in Mexico in a brownfields district. Does the agreement we have with the Santa Fe mill directly influence and make it 10 times easier to permit project number 1? No, that's not the case, but there are some very real benefits to continuing to consolidate and then modernizing past producing brownfields districts in this area of Mexico.
Thanks, Mike. With numerous prospective targets in a handful of different regions, can you remind us if any areas still require further permitting or permissions before drilling can commence?
In some cases, new drill holes may take a shorter period of permitting, but the drill holes that we want to drill that are part of the budgeted meterage right now are all permitted, and the work that we're doing in Santa Fe is ready to go as well.
Thanks, Mike. For Jesus, what percentage of the updated 2025 exploration budget is allocated to Vizsla royalties covered concessions?
Yeah, all of it. All of this exploration budget is within the Panuco district and is within Vizsla royalties. Interesting.
Great, thanks, Jesus. How do discoveries like the Napoleon HW4 feeder zones affect assumptions around metallurgy and mining method?
Not about metallurgy in particular, because it's essentially the same mineralization that we are seeing in Napoleon, with a little bit notch increase in gold values at the hanging wall 4. So we shouldn't expect changes in the metallurgical behavior of the ore there. In the mining method, there could be some variations. We already, based on the PEA, we already have 2 different methods that are going to be applied in the veins, because we have either vertical veins or flat line mineralization. So we already, I think we already covered on that part as well, that front.
Thanks, Jesus. Back to Mike. What is your long-term vision for district and regional consolidation? And are there more properties you are looking at to potentially roll in?
Well, I shouldn't say too much here about specific properties or anything like that, but we're always looking to continue to expand our land holdings here. We're firmly convinced that this is the best district to be doing this in Mexico, and we certainly have a home team advantage here. We've got 6 years of credible history of creating a huge amount of value for partners that we work for. In each case, every one of the vendors that we've purchased properties from have become shareholders and haven't sold any stock actually as well. They're very strong supporters. And in the case of Santa Fe, that's a gentleman who's been operating there for years and sees himself as a very important, and we see him as well as a very important part of the team as well. So we have this kind of growing support of great people with a lot of mining experience in this region of Mexico, and as a result, we're looking at a number of other projects as well that would fill in some of the gaps or the contiguous ground around some of the projects. We get excited about that, and like I said earlier, it's like having a time machine and going back to some of these great districts 200, 300 years ago in Mexico. That's how we see this district. So our long-term vision is to be, I think I've stated this before, but happy to reiterate it here. But we have a vision of being a 50 million ounce silver equivalent producer in the next 10 years, and I suspect a lot of that will actually come from the ground that we've been acquiring in the last 12 months. These things take a bit of time. They'll be supercharged by cash flow in the future. But we're doing a lot of work. More work, I would imagine, than pretty much any company in our peer group, I would think about this regional generative work where we're coming up with targets that we have the vision to turn into producing centers in the near term future.
Thanks, Mike. Staying with you, if Vizsla receives its permits earlier than expected, will you start construction earlier than expected?
Yeah, we're funded now to a point where as soon as we get the permits, we're going to start. I think the day that we get our permits, I'll probably be the happiest person on earth that day, as I imagine a lot of the people on our team will be. And we're ready to go when that happens. So we've removed, by doing this financing weeks ago, we've removed the necessity to go out and ask the capital markets for money in order to start. We're ready to do that, and we're very excited about that potential to do that as soon as possible.
Thanks, Mike. And for the final question, can you reiterate Vizsla's key catalysts for the remainder of the year?
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe I'll even share this slide here. Probably the most proximal one here that is a very important update for the company is the feasibility study that we're working on. That'll be due by the end of the year here, and I always say before Christmas of 2025. We're working diligently on the feasibility study. It's been our goal to have that be in line with the PEA, which maybe at face value that doesn't sound that overly impressive, but I assure you that it is, because most companies put a dream sheet of a PEA out, and then the feasibility is negatively impacted by reality. However, we started with a more realistic view, a feasibility view, let's say, in the PEA, and when we go to the feasibility study, I think it's going to be in line with what we saw at the PEA, and in addition, it'll be actionable for us. So that's a very important step, one of the most important steps before we enter into construction. Permitting is also something that we've worked on. So in the next 12 months, we have hopes to see that permit in that period of time, and that'll be very important to us to move the project forward. Of course, we're working on project finance. That's been something that we've been working on for the better part of the last 2 years, much earlier than most companies would look at that. And the idea is that in tandem with the feasibility, we'll be in a position to discuss the next level of non-dilutive financing for the project in order for us to be extremely well funded as we go into construction. Now, the test mine is something that every 3-4 meters that we progress there, is a major de-risking step for us. Every day we de-risk the project further and further by the progress that we have at the test mine. So, that's a catalyst for us as well. I think the completion of the test mine, getting to Copala, getting our eyes and our hands on the vein, and starting to stockpile high-grade material above surface at Copala, I think is a very important catalyst, very important step for us. And in addition to that, we just heard Jesus talk in great detail about all of these targets that we have. We have an abundance of targets. Any one of those could become the next Copala, and Copala is a 200 million plus ounce silver equivalent beast that we haven't even found any limit on. It's open north, south, and at depth. It's even open towards surface, which is pretty remarkable as it sits barely, in most cases it sits just subsurface. So we have the potential for finding another monster like Copala basically at every drill hole that we're taking, and I think that is really what differentiates us from other development companies. This is the best of both worlds. You have a tier 1 asset being developed in the west, and you have the potential at any time as we're drilling for the discovery of something that could rival Copala in the future. So we're thrilled about that, and again, de-risked in the sense that we're very, very well funded to achieve all of these goals.
Thank you, Mike and Jesus, and thank you all for joining today's discussion. If we weren't able to get to your questions today, please feel free to reach out to us at info@vizslasilver.ca, and also register for updates at vizslasilvercorp.com. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Thank you everybody for attending. Really appreciate your time.